The school my son attends is pushing to suspend him because he protected himself when a bully attempted to seriously harm him. Yesterday evening, my boy returned home looking clearly distressed. I gently asked what was bothering him. He's only 8, so he still opens up to me about these things. He went on to describe how during lunchtime, a classmate started harassing him over his severe peanut allergy. The other boy claimed he was pretending about the allergy and threatened to smear peanut butter across him to expose the lie. My son firmly replied that he wasn't pretending at all and that even contact with peanut butter could kill him. Several other children chimed in, saying the bully shouldn't worry and should go ahead anyway. At that moment, my son explained that he immediately informed both the classroom teacher and the cafeteria supervisor, both already aware of his condition, and they stepped in to stop it yesterday. Later at home, I sat down with him for a serious conversation about always choosing the proper path, reporting to an adult and refusing to let the other child provoke him into reacting badly. Then we moved on to the tougher discussion. I know this part might upset some folks, and that's perfectly okay. People can hold different views, but I won't feel sorry for instructing my child to protect himself when necessary. Once we'd covered the importance of handling things correctly and exhausting every option to de-escalate, I explained that in rare cases you might have to take an action that's normally unacceptable purely to save yourself, but only as the very final option. When he asked me to clarify, I said, as long as the other boy is merely using words to tease, he should always just leave the area. However, if the bully actually attempts to spread peanut butter on him, then he should strike back forcefully, using the edge of his hand directly to the throat, almost like a sharp chop, and only continue if the threat persists. Jump ahead to this afternoon. The principal phones me, stating my son had physically attacked another pupil and I needed to collect him immediately. When I inquired about the details, they refused to discuss it on the call. Deep down, though, I had a small smile because I already understood the situation. Arriving at the school, I found my boy in the office, tears rolling down his cheeks. Ignoring the principal's attempt to speak with me first, I went straight to him and asked what took place. He explained that the bully had peanut butter smeared on his fingers and was warning he would rub it across my son's face. My son then said he followed my advice exactly, striking the boy in the throat, after the bully actually smeared some on his arm. I examined his arm, which looked noticeably puffy, and checked whether he was struggling to breathe. He replied he felt okay, just a bit unsteady. Right then the principal jumped in, insisting they cannot permit students to strike others simply over a small amount of peanut butter being wiped on someone. Children pull these kinds of stunts all the time, and therefore he would face a multi-day suspension. It was clear she had no real understanding of how dangerous a peanut allergy can be. So I interrupted and asked my son whether he had warned the bully to back off prior to striking. He confirmed he had shouted multiple times that he was allergic to peanut butter, begged him to stop, but the boy kept pretending he would continue. The principal's expression turned to one of surprise. I demanded to review the cafeteria security footage. On the recording, you can clearly see and hear my son shouting while desperately retreating from the aggressor. When the bully appears to seize his arm, my boy screams at full volume, "I told you to stop!" Next, he takes hold of the bully's arm, yanks him forward, and delivers an impressive clothesline that drops the kid flat. Afterward, my son collapses to the floor in the middle of the lunch area and begins sobbing. At that stage, I informed the principal that unless my child was permitted to return to classes the following day, I would be speaking with an attorney regarding the attempted murder of my son. I added that, provided there were no further complications from the exposure, I would refrain from filing any legal action against either the school or the bully, as it seemed he might have already received a powerful message. With no immediate reply, and roughly 30 minutes having passed since the contact occurred, I gathered my son and headed straight to the emergency room for evaluation. Just 10 minutes ago, the district superintendent rang to inform me that the board had overruled the suspension. My son could attend school again tomorrow. The hospital gave him a full clearance. The swelling is gradually subsiding thanks to an epinephrine shot. They've scheduled a meeting with me and the school board for Thursday afternoon. Update. My son's school attempted to suspend him for protecting himself when a bully tried to potentially kill him. I just finished the meeting. It wasn't actually the full board as the phone call suggested, but rather the principal plus a district legal advisor. I brought my own attorney, and beforehand we outlined my goals clearly. My primary demands were establishing proper safeguards so allergens never come near my child again, and guaranteeing this particular student could never threaten or approach him in the future. Additionally, I wanted an explanation for why the principal seemed completely unaware of my son's documented allergy before threatening suspension. The lawyers exchanged some formal legal points while the principal and I listened. When it was my chance to speak, I calmly laid out those two main requests. I also questioned why she hadn't bothered to investigate the full context before deciding on punishment. Her response: the lunch monitor had informed her it involved almond butter instead of peanut, so she hadn't dug deeper. I can see her reasoning on that point, yet it doesn't change how unacceptable the initial response felt to me. The aggressive child has now been transferred to another school entirely. Regrettably, privacy laws prevent me from learning the new location, and honestly, I'm not interested anyway. The cafeteria supervisor was terminated. I didn't learn this during the meeting itself, but my son's teacher phoned me last night after classes ended and shared the news. When I asked the reason, she said the monitor had been glued to her cell phone just as the incident escalated, which is precisely why no one intervened sooner. Following advice from a close friend and several private messages here, I asked for and received an allergen-free lunch table at our school. Apparently, this policy will now roll out across every school in the entire district. Kids without allergies can sit there, but any shared lunches get double-checked by both a teacher and a monitor to confirm zero allergens are present. Now for the unexpected twist. It turns out the substance wiped on my son was most likely almond butter. Last night, the other boy's parents somehow tracked down our address through a shared acquaintance and appeared at our doorstep. Their son was deeply remorseful toward me and requested permission to apologize directly to my child. I agreed without hesitation. I welcomed the whole family into our living room. The boy immediately burst into tears, saying he never intended to cause real harm. My son began crying too, admitting he hated having to strike him and offered his own apology. The parents then prompted their son to recount the full story. He explained that he enjoys both peanut butter and almond butter. He had almond butter on his sandwich plus a small peanut butter packet for crackers. Wanting to keep up the teasing from the previous day, he joked about smearing peanut butter on my son, dabbed a tiny bit on his fingers to scare him into believing it was real. Afterward, he cleaned his fingers and then used some almond butter from his sandwich. That was what ended up on his hands when he grabbed my son's arm. I suspect a trace amount of peanut residue remained from earlier, accounting for the relatively mild reaction. I asked whether he truly understood the effects of a peanut allergy. To his parents' credit, they'd forced him to research it on WebMD, and he described the breathing difficulties and other serious symptoms he'd retained. I decided to demonstrate the seriousness by showing him our EpiPen, the actual auto-injector we've used before, purely for educational purposes, explaining how it must be jabbed into someone during severe anaphylaxis. Then I handed him the practice trainer version, walked him through the correct placement and how to activate it. Yes, I made sure to clarify it was only the trainer. I briefly considered not telling him, but decided that would lower me to his level of deception. When it clicked and fired, he practically leaped out of his skin. He was clearly terrified. The parents repeated their apologies, as did their son. I assured everyone that the lesson had been thoroughly absorbed and I would not be pressing any further legal matters against the child or his family. As they were departing, my son suddenly dashed forward, hugged the other boy tightly, and whispered that he hoped he wouldn't face too much punishment.